Before we get started, I want to give a bit of a warning that this episode touches on the subjects of domestic violence and abuse. Here is the information for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and if you or anyone you know is in need of help, please don't hesitate to give them a call at 1-800-799-7233. If you're watching this video, it's almost guaranteed you've seen a movie that claims it was based on a true story. Maybe it was a biopic of someone famous, or a reenactment of a true crime story, or an animated movie about the Titanic that features a rapping dog.
I'll be busting the moves and I'll be busting the rhymes. We'll be busting up laughing cause it's party time.
Even though those movies say they're based on a true story, oftentimes that truth is subjective. Filmmakers tend to use the true stories more as a jumping off point, before finding ways to bend the truth and make it a more compelling story. Sometimes it's about creating an antagonist, like how in the movie Rudy, the coach who won't let Rudy play, was actually very supportive of him in real life. Sometimes it's about combining several real people into one character, like how The Rock in Pain and Gain is a combination of several real-life criminals. Sometimes it's about writing a movie where you tell everyone that you won a secret underground karate fighting tournament that probably never actually existed, like in The King's Speech. Wait, I meant Bloodsport. Sorry, I always get those mixed up. Movies based on true stories often add bits and pieces to flesh out the film. But it's not often you can say a movie actually dialed back the crazy. But the 1990 black comedy film I Love You to Death proves the old cliche that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. I Love You to Death tells the story of a small-town pizza shop owner named Joey Boca and his wife Rosalie. Joey is comically unfaithful to his wife, barely able to remember how many affairs he has going at any given time. Rosalie is hopelessly devoted to Joey, so when she finds out about his affairs, she decides he must pay with his life. What ensues is the stuff fans of black comedies dream of, as Rosalie, along with her mother Nadia, set out on their plan to kill Joey. The only problem is, Joey just won't die. After a couple of failed attempts, including trying to blow up his car, Rosalie decides to poison Joey with sleeping pills, but all it does is make him sleepy and convinced he has the flu. She's finally able to convince her co-worker Devo to shoot Joey in the head, but it only wounds him. As a last-ditch effort, they recruit a pair of local drug addicts to finish the job, which they do by shooting Joey in the chest. As Rosalie mourns the husband she just had murdered and contemplates what this means for her soul, imagine her surprise when Joey stumbles down the stairs with a hole in his chest and complains of a headache. At this point, I'm sure you're wondering just how real this all was, and I have to come clean. There is a major lie here. Her mother wasn't involved. The rest of the story is surprisingly true, with a few expected exaggerations and omissions.
Monopoly.
The real story starts in 1983 in the town of Allentown, Pennsylvania, with a woman named Frances Toto and her husband Tony. Just like in the film, Tony was a serial cheater. When Frances found out about it, she decided to have him killed. Frances, who has since said she was under the influence of methamphetamines at the time, enlisted the support of her daughter's ex-boyfriend Anthony Bruno to help kill Tony. While the movie shows a couple attempts before the poisoning, it leaves out another attempt where they tried the good old-fashioned method of making him fall down the stairs. Frances tried to poison Tony with sleeping pills, but just like in the movie, Tony just wouldn't go down. Anthony Bruno shot Tony in the head. Tony wouldn't go down. Finally, they hired a pair of cousins named Ronald and Donald Bartlett to finish the job by shooting him in the chest, which they finally did, resulting in Tony still not going down. The dude was unkillable. He's like an Italian Rasputin. The irony behind Tony surviving the gunshots is that he probably only survived them because of the other attempts to kill him. You see, when Frances poisoned him, she unknowingly saved his life. He had so many barbiturates in his system, it slowed down the bleeding to the point where it wasn't fatal. This is where the film and real-life events begin to pivot a little bit more. In both instances, the police arrive to the household to find Joey/Tony and rush him to the hospital. In the film, Joey finds out his wife tried to kill him, and after the world's quickest self-assessment, he professes his undying love for her as they make love in the police station and live happily ever after. In real life, it didn't go that smoothly. Yes, Tony did stand by Frances, but she still had to go on trial. Frances, along with Anthony Bruno and the Bartlett cousins, all served prison time for his attempted murder. They weren't the only ones who may have been involved, as something the movie glosses over is a couple of other arrests that were made. The Totos' underage children were arrested as accessories. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any information about whether those charges stuck or not, but their involvement might go to show that Tony was slightly less charming in real life than he was in the movie. Regardless of those extra details, the movie seemed to get the big picture stuff right. On a surface level, it looked like the shooting was a wake-up call for Tony. He stood by Frances through the trial and her 4-year incarceration, including moving the family closer to the prison she was in. He even closed the pizza shop because according to him, that's what started everything. Stupid me thinking it was the constant infidelity that was the problem, when it was the pizza business all along. As you might imagine, this oddball story picked up a lot of national attention. I don't have the clip, but Tony even appeared on an episode of Oprah Winfrey before she became, well, Oprah Winfrey. The story also caught the attention of screenwriter John Costmayer, who was able to get the Totos to give him the rights. This was a unique situation, as typically criminals aren't allowed to profit off their crimes. It's commonly referred to as a son of Sam law after attempts to make sure serial killer David Berkowitz didn't see a dime from any of his writings. There's a lot of nuance to it from state to state, but their overall idea is the same: protect victims from being profited off of. But whereas Frances was the perpetrator, Tony was the victim, so that crazy pizza man found the loophole. TriStar Pictures ended up with those rights, and reports indicate the original choice for director was Mel Brooks. Those negotiations fell through, and eventually the film wound up in the hands of Lawrence Kasdan. Kasdan was just coming off a run of films that included The Accidental Tourist, The Big Chill, and Silverado. Not only an accomplished director, he was an accomplished writer, best known for his work on a small art house film called The Empire Strikes Back. Kasdan was drawn to the project by the idea of this flawed character who cannot die because he was so full of life. He was quoted in the LA Times as saying, "They told me this is a feminist movie. He ends up with a bullet in his head and it makes him think. And what he thinks is that he loves his wife. To me, what the story is about is that their love was so strong you couldn't kill that. Even trying to murder him, he still loved her. So there's a symmetry there to me. He's too full of life to die, and so is their relationship." He enjoyed the screenplay so much, this is the first movie he directed that he didn't write himself. And it's worth reminding everyone, Kasdan wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, so imagine how good this screenplay must have been. Filming for the movie began in April of 1989 in Tacoma, Washington. For the cast, Kasdan put together a murderer's row.
I see what you did there.
To play Joey Boca, the oversexed foreign rapscallion, Kasdan cast his frequent collaborator and expert at playing oversexed foreign rapscallions, Kevin Kline. For his put-upon wife Rosalie, he cast a rising television star in Tracy Ullman. He rounded out the cast with legendary British stage actress Joan Plowright as Rosalie's murderous mother Nadja. He got some young kid named River Phoenix to play the role of the young and naive Devo, based on Anthony Bruno. And my personal favorite casting choice of them all, he cast William Hurt and Keanu Reeves as the incompetent hitmen Harlan and Marlon James, were based on Ronald and Donald Bartlett. By all accounts, it was a great shoot. Joan Plowright and Kevin Kline both said it was one of their favorite movie-making experiences. When the movie came out in April 6, 1990, it finished in a disappointing 6th place behind films like Pretty Woman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Ernest Goes to Jail. The critical reception was also mixed. Some critics liked it, while some critics hated it, including several who found the story too unrealistic. Even Siskel and Ebert couldn't reach a consensus. Ebert liked the film while Siskel thought it was too boring, but they were both in consensus that the performances were excellent. Both of their gripes seemed to be with the plot of the movie or lack thereof. Personally, I think that criticism is a bit too harsh, but I do have to agree the performances are what makes the movie a fun watch. Especially the unlikely comedic duo of William Hurt and Keanu Reeves, who steal every scene they're in. Oh, did I say Keanu Reeves? I meant
Keanu Reeves.
Despite my endorsement of the film, it doesn't change that the movie currently sits at 58% on Rotten Tomatoes. Whether it was too boring, or too dark, or too Italian, a lot of people just seem to dislike the movie. One of those people was Anthony Bruno. He said he had lost his job due to the publicity of the film and was upset with Frances and Tony's version of events. He told the Allentown Morning Call, "Frances is going on talk shows now. She sits there and laughs. This has ruined my life." He wasn't the only one. As Ronald Bartlett's mother said, "I think it's ridiculous. Why should someone else make a profit on something one of my kids was involved with?" It wasn't just the people involved in the story who were against the film. A Bethlehem, Pennsylvania woman named Lori Donnelly set out on a boycott campaign against the movie. She told reporters, "It's a sin that people can resort to violence and instead of being suitably punished are rewarded by being made rich beyond their wildest dreams. This is showing the young people of America that crime does pay." God, I hope no one ever told her about Mark Wahlberg. Other Allentown natives were mixed on the movie as well. Some were sick of the Toto story by that point, while others still wanted tickets to see the quote-unquote nut movie. Donnelly didn't need a boycott campaign to get the Totos out of the public eye, as the movie came and went quickly and the Totos faded back into obscurity. I Love You to Death is now best known as a minor cult classic, one of those movies a certain generation fell in love with when it entered the rotation of cable channels. Believe it or not, Tony and Frances are still together, going on year 58. Tony chalked up their continued marital success to learning how to communicate, although I imagine the lack of infidelity has probably been helpful. Still, they're still together, now the limelight, and nothing out of the ordinary ever happened to Tony or Frances again. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit like and subscribe, and check out some of the other ones I've made. It goes out saying, but check out I Love You to Death too. It's a great movie. And in the description there'll be links to other videos and articles, because there's a lot more to the Toto case than I was able to cover.